physically to all their students. What a school counselor can do and what a school counselor is expected to do varies from person to person. The only constant with the school counselors is that everyone expects them to make the right decision every time. One would think that the school counselor is expected to make a good decision every time, but all good decisions are not the right decision. If I was to define the right decision and the good decision, I would define them as the right decision being the ethical choice and the good decision being the moral choice. The ethical choice is based on standards, laws, and codes, and the moral choice is based on religion, faith, and values. As a person, I will let my moral code guide me through all decision-making procedures, but the school counselor is more than a person. They are professionals, and as professionals, they are expected to make professional decisions. The professional decision is the ethical decision. It is not always the good decision, but it is always the right decision. I know that was a lot of information thrown at you at one time, but the whole purpose of this presentation is to help you, as a school counselor, solve those tough decisions. And as a school counselor, the best way to solve those tough decisions is to follow the ethical decision-making model. So I'm going to present you with a hypothetical situation, and we're going to walk through on how do you solve those tough situations as a school counselor. The hypothetical situation starts. The high school counselor is seeing a student and helping them with their college preparation. The student is somewhat motivated and is showing improvement. The student has expressed an interest in the school that the counselor attended for the undergraduate. The program the student wishes to pursue happens to be ran by the counselor's husband. The counselor has told the student that they will be willing to talk to their husband and set up an appointment for them to meet. The student's parents become aware of this, and the counselor receives a letter. In the letter is an all-expense paid vacation for both the counselor and the husband. Doesn't that sound like a great idea? You help a student, parents give you an all-paid expense vacation. You're doing your job. You get to reap the benefit. You get to reap the benefits of going on vacation. The first step in the 7-step decision-making process is identify the problem. In this situation, this problem can be considered as a good problem for many counselors. The reason why this could be considered as a good problem is the counselor is considering a bright student who has an ambition to further their education after high school. The student's parents are not financially burdened by the idea of the child going to college to continue their life as a lifelong learner. The school counselor is in a position to recommend the student as a positive asset to the good college. The student is in a position to be successful and benefit from their hard work. The problem in this situation is the parents gave the school counselor an all-expense paid vacation for the school counselor and the husband. So what's the problem in this scenario? The benefit that the school counselor received after helping the student. After you define the problem, the next step is follow the ACA Code of Ethics. In ACA Code of Ethics, Article 10, Receiving Gifts, reads, counselors understand the challenges of accepting gifts from clients and recognize that in some cultures, small gifts are tokens of respect and showing gratitude. When determining whether or not to accept a gift from a client, counselors take into account the therapeutic relationship, the monetary values of the gift, the client's motivation for giving a gift, and the client's motivation from waiting or declining the gift. The school counselor knows that accepting a gift of that magnitude would be unethical. ACA Code of Ethics Article 5D also states, when a counselor-client non-professional interaction with the client or former client may be potentially beneficial to the client or former client, the counselor must document in case records prior to the interaction the rationale for such an interaction, the potential benefit and anticipated consequence of the client or former client and other individuals significantly involved with the client or former client. In this hypothetical scenario, the school counselor did not plan a professional interaction between the student and the college department chair. The school counselor planned to set up a meeting between her husband and the student she is helping prepare for college at her alma mater. The student was going to potentially benefit from the meeting because they were not accepted to the program prior to the meeting with the husband. Third step in the 7-step decision-making process is determine the nature and dimensions of the dilemma. The ethical guidelines do not address all situations, but in this case, the school counselor, her issues can be clarified with the 5 moral principles. Out of the 5 moral principles, the school counselor's issues fall in the category of non-malfeasance and justice. Non-malfeasance is the concept of not causing harm to others, and the principle reflects both the idea of not inflicting intentional harm and not engaging in interactions that risk harming others. The school counselor giving the student a false sense of hope by telling him or her that he or she is going to talk to her husband and set up a meeting between the two. The student believes that if she is accepted into the college or denied the college program, the counselor's husband will have a choice in the matter. Also, the school counselor didn't provide justice to her student. Justice refers to if an individual is to be treated differently. The school counselor needs to be able to offer a rationale that explains the necessity and appropriateness of treating this individual differently. The school counselor would not be able to logically explain why she set up a private meeting between her student and her husband unless the school counselor has to set up meetings between her husband and previous students in the past. As a counselor, it is essential that evidence be kept on records. Your actions, and as a school counselor, it is your job to provide evidence for all decision making for all students. Step 4 is to generate a potential course of action. What options does a school counselor have in a situation of this nature? The first option would be to return the gracious gift of all expense paid vacation back to the parents with a letter explaining why he or she can't accept the gift. The second option would be keep all expense vacation because he or she believes that it's not unethical to keep the trip. The third option would be return the trip back to the parents and continue to the student help in that manner. The fourth option would be for the school counselor to return the gift, cancel the meeting, and assist the student by using professional resources. The fifth step, after defining the general potential course of action, leads to the potential consequences. We all know the consequences of happening if the school counselor was to keep the gift. The school counselor would get fired. We know the consequences if the school counselor does not help the student with this meeting. The student is not going to get into the college. The parents are going to be upset. The parents might write a letter to the school saying that the school counselor somehow morally did their child wrong, which is going to lead to greater consequences or greater actions. It's going to make the whole situation even worse than what it has to be. Discussing options, you always want to find what is the best option. And the best option for the school counselor would be that third option I mentioned. Will return the trip back to the parents and continue to help the student in the manner she believes is professional and ethical. Again, the manner she believes is professional and ethical. You as a school counselor, you have to operate on the notion of what you feel. If you feel and you're ready to put your job on the line and your livelihood on the line, and you believe that it's professional and ethical, you go with that decision. The next step will be evaluate the selected course of action. This course of action is the best course of action in this situation. The school counselor did what was expected of her in her position. She motivated one of her students who wanted to achieve in life and become a better person. What the school counselor did for her student is what the school counselor should do for all willing students. When dealing with students, the word willing separates what a school counselor can do for a student and what a school counselor is willing to do for a student. All students are capable of great things, but the ones who are willing to do great things will do great things. And last but not least, implement the course of action. The role of the school counselor is never changing. The school counselor has to be acceptable to change, and the change will come with growth. In this situation, the school counselor made the best decision possible. They returned the gift. They helped the student. And in this situation, yes, the student was accepted into the school, and the student lived a successful life and became a professor at the university because this was a hypothetical situation. But the best decision the school counselor did was return the gift, follow the 7-step model, make sure that the decision that they were making met the ethical guidelines as a person and as a professional school counselor. And if the decision was wrong, the school counselor did everything in his or her power to ensure that they met those ethical guidelines. And I'd like to say thank you. This has been a Malcolm X production. And this is Ethics vs Morality as a school counselor in today's public school.